73%. I want to start right there today.
It is a massive number.
Right. I mean, almost 3/4 of the knowledge workers sitting in your office right now, the people, running your marketing campaigns, balancing ledgers, writing your proprietary code, they are feeding corporate data into artificial intelligence tools every single day.
Every single day. And the really scary part.
The multi-million-dollar software your IT department bought to protect that data is just, well, completely blind to it.
It's a staggering reality. We are witnessing the largest, quietest migration of sensitive corporate data in the history of modern business. And it's happening without a single alarm bell ringing.
Welcome to another deep dive. We are so thrilled to have you here, whether you are prepping for a board meeting or, trying to secure your team's workflow or just insanely curious about where the digital world is heading. You are definitely in the right place. Today, we are pulling from a massive stack of 2025 and 2026 data. We've got comprehensive AI statistics from MasterCode Global. We are looking at security and governance frameworks from Resolve.ai. And we are bringing in threat intelligence reports from Fidelis Security.
Right, and our mission today is to uncover the silent, completely invisible ways the software we use every day is leaking our most sensitive data.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we need to figure out how to actually stop it without bringing your team's productivity to a grinding halt, right?
Yeah, exactly, because the tension between security and speed, it has never been more strained than it is right now.
I want to frame this with a visual for you. Usually when we talk about diagnosing a problem, like, say, a medical issue, there's an expectation of mechanical precision.
Right, like an X-ray.
Exactly. If you fall and break your arm, you go to the hospital, they put you in an X-ray machine, and the screen shows that jagged white line. The doctor just points at it and says, there it is, that's the fracture. It's visible. It's binary.
It's a very comforting illusion, really. We crave that kind of visible, categorized certainty, especially when it comes to risk.
But then you step into a field like complex trauma or neurodevelopment, and suddenly that X-ray machine is utterly useless.
Yeah, you're looking at a murky landscape.
Right. You have to look for behavioral patterns, subtle shifts in baseline activity. And I want you, the listener, to hold on to that image. Because today, we're taking that exact concept, the loss of clean, visible certainty, and applying it to your corporate network.
Because that diagnostic X-ray machine that your IT department relies on to protect your data, it is fundamentally broken.
It's showing a perfectly clean bill of health on the monitor while the patient is actively bleeding out on the table.
Yes, and that bleeding is accelerating. According to the data, only 39% of organizations have formal AI governance policies in place.
39%. It's incredibly low.
It gets worse. While governance is that low, the amount of corporate data being actively fed into AI tools grew by 485% in just a single year. From March 2023 to March 2024, corporate data usage in AI didn't just grow, it exploded.
Wow. 485%.
Which tells us something profound about where we actually are in the AI timeline. We've officially moved past what the tech industry was affectionately calling pilot purgatory back in 2024 and 2025.
Oh, I remember pilot purgatory. Every company was setting up a task force to explore AI. Lots of meetings, lots of whiteboards.
Right, very little actual deployment. They were treating it like a novelty, like a shiny toy.
But when you look at these 2026 numbers, the narrative has just completely shifted.
Entirely. AI is no longer a novelty, right? It is infrastructure. It has become the plumbing of the modern office.
But with that new infrastructure comes a terrifying new vulnerability that most companies aren't even looking for.
Exactly. They are standing guard at the heavy steel front door of the bank vault, while the gold is just quietly slipping out through microscopic cracks in the floorboards.
Which is exactly why we are speaking directly to you today, because whether you are a C-suite executive trying to secure your enterprise's intellectual property, or a manager trying to hit quarterly targets, or, just an employee who wants to use these amazing new tools to get your work done and go home at a reasonable hour, this is essential knowledge.
You really cannot rely on the IT department to save you here. You have to be the frontline defense.
So let's trace that evolution. To understand how our data is leaking so profusely, we first have to understand how the very definition of rogue software has completely transformed. Let's establish a baseline here. When I first started working in corporate environments, the big boogeyman for IT was always shadow IT.
Oh, yeah. Shadow IT is a concept that has plagued chief information officers for decades. At its core, I mean, it refers to employees quietly deploying unapproved applications or cloud services or even physical hardware entirely outside the purview of the IT department.
It's the classic scenario, right?
Hmm.
A marketing director gets super frustrated because the official file-sharing software takes 20 minutes to upload a single video file, and it crashes half the time.
Yeah, it's always clunky.
So they just pull out their personal corporate card, go online, and buy a team subscription to Dropbox or Google Drive. They distribute the passwords to their team, and boom, problem solved. They are working faster.
Or, it's a software engineer who hates the clunky corporate issue laptop, so they bring in their personal MacBook, connect it to the guest Wi-Fi, and do their coding there.
Right. Or a sales team using a free version of Trello to track multi-million-dollar deals because the official CRM requires 20 clicks just to log a single phone call.
Exactly. The defining characteristic of traditional shadow IT is that employees do it because it delivers tangible, immediate business value. I mean, they are under immense pressure to move fast, to produce results, and the official IT procurement process is just moving at a glacial pace.
They aren't trying to be malicious. They are literally just trying to survive their workloads. But IT hates it because suddenly company data is living on servers they don't control behind passwords they can't manage.
Yeah, if that marketing director leaves the company, that Dropbox account and all those proprietary video files go with them. It's a massive blind spot.
But traditionally, IT could still hunt it down, right?
Yes.
They could look at expense reports and see the Dropbox charge.
Right, or they could monitor the network traffic and see massive uploads going to an unsanctioned domain. It was a game of whack-a-mole, but the moles were at least visible.
But now, looking at these reports from Resolve.ai and Fidelis, we are dealing with something called shadow AI. And from everything I'm reading, this is not just shadow IT with a sleek new chatbot interface slapped on top of it.
No, it is an entirely different paradigm of risk, and it is far more insidious.
Oh, so?
Well, when most people hear shadow AI, their mind immediately goes to the modern equivalent of that Dropbox scenario. They picture an employee secretly spinning up an unauthorized personal ChatGPT or Claude account on their work laptop to write emails.
Which, I mean, to be fair, absolutely still happens.
It does, but that is not the threat that is currently keeping chief information security officers awake at night.
So what is the actual nightmare scenario?
The real threat is generative AI that is quietly, almost invisibly, embedded inside the approved software stack that people already use every single day.
Wait, hold on. So it's the software the company actually paid for. The software IT explicitly told you to use.
Yes, that is the massive loophole here. We aren't talking about a rogue application. We are talking about generative AI features quietly rolled out inside your official sanctioned CRM.
Oh, wow.
Inside your approved document editing suite, inside your HR platform and your customer support ticketing system.
You know, the sources bring up a really fascinating design metaphor to explain why this is so hard to spot. They compare modern software interfaces to Dieter Rams' design.
Yes, the Dieter Rams aesthetic.
And for you listening, if you aren't familiar with industrial design history, Dieter Rams is a total legend. He was the chief design officer at Braun for decades. His philosophy heavily inspired Jony Ive and the look of early Apple products like the iPod, the iPhone.
Right. His entire ethos was less, but better.
Exactly. Clean lines, minimal buttons, stripping away all the visual clutter until you are left with something that looks incredibly intuitive and simple.
And that philosophy has completely taken over the aesthetic of modern SaaS, software as a service. Think about the applications you use for work. You log into your dashboard, and it's this beautifully orderly, clean, minimal space. Lots of white space, soft colors.
Yeah, it looks incredibly stable. It visually communicates a sense of being well managed and safe.
Exactly. There's just a simple, elegant little text box that says, ask AI to draft a response. It doesn't look dangerous. It looks helpful.
But that Dieter Rams aesthetic is actually functioning as camouflage.
Yes, entirely. By removing all the complex buttons and leaving just a single beautiful generate text box, software vendors are completely masking the incredibly complex, highly risky data supply chain happening right behind that box.
Underneath that calm surface, there are hidden data pathways. There are subtle, concealed routes taking your incredibly sensitive corporate information and quietly routing it to external third-party subprocessors.
As the source material bluntly puts it, looks governed isn't.
Looks governed isn't. So it's not loud sabotage. It is quiet invisibility.
Exactly.
Let me see if I can map this to a physical analogy. It feels like You hire a certified, thoroughly background-checked contractor to build a highly secure, state-of-the-art house. You sign off on the blueprints. The IT department inspects the locks on the doors and the bars on the windows.
Okay, I follow.
But what you didn't realize is that as a helpful free upgrade, the contractor secretly installed a pneumatic mail chute in the living room that automatically sends copies of all your private letters straight to a third-party reading room downtown.
That is a phenomenal analogy, actually, but I want to push it one step further. Because in this scenario, the homeowner, your company's IT department, is actively paying the monthly subscription fee for the house, entirely believing that the pneumatic mail chute is just a helpful internal sorting feature.
Oh, man. They think it's keeping the mail inside the house.
Right. They have no idea it connects to an external pipeline. And to give you a sense of the scale of this problem, the Master of Code data highlights that an estimated 85 to 90% of SaaS applications currently in use are actually shadow SaaS.
I literally had to read that line in the research 3 times. 85 to 90%.
It's massive.
That means almost everything we are using is potentially routing data to places we don't understand.
The scope of this invisible pipeline is absolutely ubiquitous. I mean, every vendor is scrambling to add AI features to remain competitive, and they are pushing these updates live to your software without requiring explicit security reviews for the underlying data flows.
Which brings us to a massive question about human behavior. Why are employees feeding so much sensitive data into these embedded systems? I mean, surely people understand that pasting a confidential financial forecast into an AI prompt is risky. Are they just being reckless?
Not at all. And if management approaches this assuming malicious intent, they will absolutely fail to solve the problem.
So what's driving it?
The psychology of the modern worker is entirely anchored in efficiency, productivity, and, quite frankly, survival. Employees aren't trying to steal company secrets. They're trying to keep their heads above water.
That makes sense.
The Master of Code report surveyed these workers, and 75% of them explicitly stated their primary aim is to automate tasks using AI. They want to work faster. They want to clear the endless backlog of emails and reports.
And they don't see the danger. How can they not see it?
Because of that data RAMs design we just talked about, it looks safe. The data shows that 91% of employees see almost no risk in using these tools.
91%. That is wild.
Right. When they see a shiny new summarize this 50-page document button pop up in their official document editor, they click it because it saves them 3 hours of reading.
They do not pause to consider that the document might contain unreleased quarterly earnings or pre-merger negotiations.
Exactly. And that clicking that button just packaged that entire document and shipped it via API to an external server operated by an AI company they have never even heard of.
I want you to think about your own workflow for a second. To really get into the psychology of who is doing this, the Master of Code report breaks down the modern workforce into what they call the 5 stages of AI maturity.
It's a very revealing framework.
And as we walk through these, I want you to ask yourself which stage you currently fall into, because it brilliantly illustrates who is actually creating the most risk inside a company.
You start at the very bottom with stage 1, the AI skeptics.
The wait and see folks.
Exactly. They are highly cautious. They don't trust the output. They've read all the horror stories about AI hallucinations inventing fake legal cases, and they are terrified of data privacy leaks. They actively avoid clicking the AI buttons.
Right. So ironically, the people who know the least about how AI actually works are currently the safest because they refuse to touch it.
Pretty much. Then you move up to stage 2, the AI novices.
Okay, the novices.
Novices are intrigued. They want to use AI. They hear the colleagues talking about how much time it saves, but they don't quite know how to engage with it.
They are intimidated by the prompt engineering.
Yeah, they look at the blank text box and freeze. They are essentially waiting for management to give them an official manual and formal training.
Again, not our main risk group because they weren't generating volume. But then we hit stage 3, the AI experimenters. This is where the ice starts to get a little thin.
Yes. The experimenters are the corporate dabblers, the life hackers. They use AI for isolated ad hoc tasks. Maybe they need to rewrite a tough email to a frustrated client, so they paste their draft in to adjust the tone. Or they need to brainstorm 5 potential titles for a marketing webinar. They usually keep a browser tab open with a free AI tool just in case they get stuck.
So they are definitely starting to introduce risk into the organization, but it's sporadic. It's localized.
But then we cross the Rubicon into stage 4 and stage 5. This is where the sheer volume of data being moved becomes staggering.
Stage 4, the AI practitioners.
The practitioners are the daily drivers. For them, AI has evolved far beyond a neat trick or a novelty. It is an absolute, non-negotiable necessity for their job. It is their always-on co-pilot.
They use it to write complex code, draft massive quarterly reports, analyze messy Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, they have fully integrated generative AI into the very fabric of their daily grind. If you take their AI away, their productivity drops by 50%.
And finally, the apex predators of the digital office, stage 5, the AI experts.
The experts aren't just prompting chatbots anymore. They are building systems that run themselves. They're using APIs to connect different software platforms, deploying autonomous AI agents to handle complex, multi-step workflows without requiring any human intervention.
They're essentially building their own shadow infrastructure.
Precisely.
So it's those practitioners and experts who are the real danger here. Not because they are bad employees, but because they are moving so incredibly fast that the security teams and the compliance officers literally cannot keep up.
That's it exactly. If you are an AI practitioner, an engineer on a tight deadline, and you discover a new embedded tool that cuts your coding time in half, you are not going to submit a request to IT and wait 6 months for procurement to vet the software's data processing agreement.
No, you are going to use it today to hit your deadline tomorrow.
And that, right there, is the exact moment the invisible pipes burst.
Okay, so we've established the architecture. We see the hidden mail chutes. We understand the DRAM's camouflage, and we know exactly why the practitioners are pushing so much data through the system.
Right?
Now let's make this visceral. Let's look at what actually happens when those pipes burst. What does an accidental leak actually look like in the real world? Because the numbers from Fidelis Security are genuinely shocking. They report that 8.5% of all employee AI prompts contain sensitive corporate data.
Let that number sink in. 8.5%.
That's huge.
When you consider that a large enterprise might be generating tens of thousands of prompts every single day, that percentage represents a massive, continuous hemorrhage of confidential information.
And the breakdown of what is in that 8.5% is even more concerning. 46% of that leaked data is customer information. 27% is employee PII. Personally identifiable information like home addresses, social security numbers, salary details.
Yep.
And 15% is highly confidential legal or financial data.
We need to ground this in reality. Let's walk through some highly specific real-world scenarios to show exactly how this happens across different departments. Let's start with development and engineering.
The software engineers,
Yeah.
the people who are supposedly the most tech-savvy.
Exactly. The vulnerability here stems from a mechanical reality of large language models, or LLMs, known as unwanted memorization.
Unwanted memorization. Break that down for me.
To understand the risk, we have to look at how these models actually process data. When you type a query into a traditional database, it searches, retrieves, and clears its temporary memory. It's transactional.
Right.
But when you feed data into an LLM during training, or when a model uses user prompts to continually refine its weights, it doesn't just read it and forget it. The data is tokenized, vectorized, and embedded into the model's neural network. It essentially learns the patterns of your data.
It remembers.
It remembers deeply. And there is a very famous real-world example documented in our sources regarding a major multinational electronics company.
Okay, what happened?
Their software engineers were classic Stage 4 practitioners. They were under intense pressure to deliver a new product feature. They hit a wall with some incredibly complex, proprietary, top-secret source code, the kind of code that gives the company its competitive market advantage.
The crown jewels.
Yes. The engineers were trying to debug an error they couldn't isolate. So, to save time, they took that proprietary source code, copied it, and pasted it directly into the prompt window of ChatGPT, asking the model to find the error.
And let me guess, the AI was brilliant at it.
It is fantastic at it. It found the bug in seconds. The engineers fixed their program and moved on, thinking they had just executed a brilliant life hack.
Right.
But by pasting that proprietary code into a public free-tier AI, that code was ingested by the system. And because of the mechanics of unwanted memorization, the model learned the unique patterns and structures of that highly confidential code.
And then the trap springs.
Exactly. Shortly after, entirely unrelated external users, perhaps even competitors, were using ChatGPT, asking it to generate code for similar electronic functions. And the model, drawing on its newly refined neural weights, regurgitated pieces of that exact proprietary source code in its responses to those strangers.
Oh my God, you can't undo that. You can't ask the AI to unlearn it.
No. Once it is baked into the model's latent space, extracting it is nearly impossible. Instantly, trade secrets were lost to the wind. Millions of dollars in research and development completely compromised simply because an engineer wanted to save an hour of debugging on a Tuesday afternoon.
That is terrifying because it's so innocent. The engineer thought they were doing a good job. Okay, but that's coding. What about sales and marketing? They aren't writing proprietary algorithms. They're dealing with people.
They aren't writing algorithms, but they are handling the absolute lifeblood of the company's revenue: customer data and strategic positioning. In sales, the pressure to personalize outreach is immense. A generic email just gets ignored. So we see sales representatives exporting entire CSV files from their corporate CRM files containing thousands of contact lists, private deal notes, budget thresholds, negotiation histories.
And they export it because the official CRM is locked down.
Right. They export it, and they paste those massive spreadsheets into unapproved third-party generative AI tools, asking the AI to write 500 highly personalized cold emails based on the pain points in these deal notes.
Yikes.
Or, even more commonly, they bypass the blocked corporate laptop entirely. They sync their official CRM pipeline to a personal Microsoft OneDrive account so they can go home, use their personal MacBook that doesn't have corporate firewalls, and use cutting-edge AI tools to analyze their territory over the weekend.
And suddenly your entire Q3 revenue projection and client list is sitting on an unsecured personal cloud drive, interacting with unvetted AI models.
And marketing is just as vulnerable, but in a different way. Marketing teams are incredibly collaborative, and they love new productivity tools. We constantly see them setting up what security teams call rogue workspaces.
Rogue workspaces.
Yeah, they will use free tiers of platforms like Notion, Airtable, or Monday.com to manage major product launches. They upload client contracts, upcoming advertising creative, campaign PII, and lead generation data into these platforms.
Why? Why not use the company's official server?
Because those modern SaaS platforms have incredible built-in generative AI tools. You can highlight a 40-page creative brief and click Generate a slide deck outline, and it does it instantly. It's intoxicatingly efficient.
Right.
But those cloud-based applications are sitting entirely outside the corporate perimeter. They bypass data loss prevention systems entirely. Marketing is essentially building a parallel, highly sensitive data repository on a platform the IT department has zero visibility into.
I want to zoom in and compare two specific industries here, because when you look at the research, the contrast is incredibly stark regarding the type of data being leaked and the ultimate human cost of those leaks. Let's compare healthcare to the financial services sector.
This is a vital comparison because it really highlights why a one-size-fits-all approach to AI governance fails completely. Let's start with healthcare.
Okay.
According to the data, the adoption rate is staggering. Over 70% of healthcare organizations have either implemented or are actively pursuing Gen AI capabilities. Doctors and nurses are drowning in administrative work, and AI offers a lifeline.
But the unique data type in healthcare isn't just an email address or a budget. It's PHI-protected health information, medical histories, psychiatric evaluations, genetic markers, stuff that is heavily regulated by laws like IPR in the United States.
Exactly. And the real-world scenarios happening right now are chilling. Imagine a busy hospital ward. You have a nurse practitioner or administrator who is at the end of a 12-hour shift.
They're exhausted.
Completely. They have a massive stack of complex patient intake forms that need to be summarized into the clunky, official electronic medical record system. It's going to take hours.
I can already see where this is going.
They find a free, web-based AI summarization tool. They scan the patient records, complete with names, social security numbers, and deeply personal medical histories, and they upload the PDFs to the AI, asking it to extract the key symptoms and past surgeries into a bulleted list.
Wow.
Or they upload the files to a personal Google Drive to share with a specialist who can't access the hospital's walled garden network.
So they just want to get the patients processed and get them care. It's an act of compassion mixed with exhaustion.
But that PHI now sits completely outside the hospital's encryption standards. It is outside role-based access management. The risk exposure here is multifaceted. Yes, there are devastating IPA violations and massive regulatory fines, but more importantly, there is a profound, irreversible loss of patient privacy.
Now contrast that with the finance sector.
In finance, the adoption is also incredibly high. Over 50% of leaders in financial services are actively using Gen AI. The data they handle is primarily PCI DSS-regulated data, credit card information, banking details.
And highly sensitive corporate data, like pre-merger M&A details, capital market analysis, algorithmic trading strategies.
Right. So the scenario here is a financial analyst trying to build a quarterly forecast.
Okay.
They are working on a massive merger. They take a 300-page prospectus full of unreleased financial data, and they upload it to a public AI to search through it and build budget forecasts. Or they create a free Trello board to track tasks for the merger, pasting confidential financial figures into the task descriptions, which Trello's embedded AI then indexes.
Okay, so both of these scenarios are terrible. Both result in data leaving the perimeter. Both result in massive fines if caught. But what is the fundamental systemic difference in the risk profile between these two industries?
If we look at the ultimate consequence, the difference is the permanence of the human damage.
The permanence.
Yes. If a financial analyst accidentally leaks a database of 10,000 credit card numbers, it is a corporate disaster. The company will be heavily fined, their stock might take a hit, they will lose consumer trust, and they will have to pay millions for credit monitoring services for the victims. But, and this is the crucial distinction, a credit card can be canceled.
Right. A bank account can be frozen, the funds insured, and a new card issued with a new number. The numbers can change.
Exactly. It's a massive headache, but it's fixable. The victim is made whole financially. But if a healthcare worker leaks PHI into an AI model, you cannot reissue a cancer diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
You cannot cancel a history of severe mental health struggles or a genetic predisposition to Alzheimer's. That data is deeply, immutably tied to the core of a human being.
That's a sobering thought.
Once that information is absorbed into the training weights of a third-party AI model, it is permanently exposed. It could theoretically be regurgitated to a future employer, an insurance company, or a bad actor. The human cost is astronomically higher because the data is permanent.
That is a very heavy realization. And it brings me to a thought that I can't shake. The data says that 54% of these leaks are happening on third-party free-tier platforms.
Yes, the free tools.
We keep talking about the AI itself remembering things and spitting it back out through unwanted memorization. But what happens when the AI company itself gets hacked?
That is the secondary nightmare scenario, and it is a massive vulnerability. When your employee pastes that unreleased financial prospectus or that patient record into a free AI tool, that data isn't just floating in some abstract digital ether.
No, it's on a server somewhere.
It is transmitted, processed, and stored on physical server racks owned by that specific AI vendor. If that third-party provider experiences a data breach, if a hacker compromises their servers, your company's data is stolen, even if the AI model never technically memorized it or regurgitated it.
So by allowing employees to use unsanctioned tools,
You have effectively expanded your company's attack surface to include the security infrastructure of every single unvetted SaaS vendor your employees decide to experiment with.
Okay, so we've established that pasting data into public, unapproved AI tools is catastrophically bad. I think everyone listening intuitively grasps that. But earlier, you brought up the Dita Rams metaphor, and you mentioned that the real threat is embedded AI. I want to pull on that thread.
Absolutely.
What happens when the tools your company explicitly, officially told you to use are the ones doing the leaking?
This is the exact loophole that most enterprise security teams are completely blind to right now. Let's paint the picture. Your IT department is highly competent. They are strict. They block all traffic to public chatbots.
They write a firm, company-wide policy threatening termination for using unauthorized AI.
Right? They look at their dashboards, see no traffic to ChatGPT, and they feel secure. They think they've won. But the software stack has fundamentally shifted underneath that policy.
How so? Walk me through the mechanics of how this bypasses security.
Your approved, officially procured CRM platform, the one IT spent 6 months vetting last year, pushes a routine overnight software update.
Just a normal update.
The next morning, it suddenly features a sparkling new button that says, "Draft an email to this client based on their history." Your approved document suite adds a button in the corner to summarize this board pack. Your approved HR platform offers an AI assist button for writing performance reviews.
And nobody in IT or security was asked to approve these specific new features?
Nobody. The vendor just pushed them live as a value add. Because the core application, the CRM, the document suite is on the approved list, the security team assumes the data flow is secure.
But it's not.
Not always. These embedded AI features are incredibly computationally heavy. The vendor usually doesn't process that AI request on their own servers. Very often when you click that summarize button, the approved application takes your document, packages it up, and sends it via API to an external subprocessor like OpenAI, Anthropic, or a specialized cloud provider to do the actual thinking.
Wait, I have to challenge this. I know companies that are paying tens of millions of dollars a year for enterprise security.
Yeah.
They have massive firewalls. They have dedicated threat hunting teams. How does a simple summarize this document button bypass a multi-million-dollar security apparatus entirely? How does the firewall not catch the data leaving the building?
Because traditional security tools were built with an entirely different architectural philosophy in mind. They were built to guard the perimeter of the building.
Okay.
They were designed to keep bad actors out and stop employees from visiting known bad websites. They were not built to monitor trapdoors hidden inside the vault itself. Let me break down exactly why the 3 pillars of traditional enterprise security are failing mechanics.
Please explain the mechanics. Let's start with firewalls. Why is the toll booth on the highway failing to stop this?
Think of a firewall exactly like that highway toll booth. Its primary job is to monitor IP connections. It looks at the license plate of the car, the IP address, and checks a list to see if that car is heading to a known bad neighborhood on the internet.
Like a malware server or an unauthorized cloud storage site?
Right. If a user tries to go to a blocked AI site, the firewall drops the gate. But an embedded AI feature is different. When you click that button in your approved CRM, the network request is sent to the CRM's approved servers.
So the firewall thinks it's fine.
Yes. The firewall looks at the traffic, sees it's going to a trusted vendor, and waves it through. It has no idea that once the data reaches the CRM server, the application itself is routing your data out the back door to an unauthorized third-party language model.
Okay, so the firewall is blind because the traffic looks legitimate. What about SIEM? Security information and event management. That's supposed to be the central brain of a security operations center.
SIEM relies entirely on parsing logs. It collects millions of log files from all your proof systems, servers, and applications, and correlates events to look for suspicious patterns.
Right, so shouldn't it see the data leaving?
The fatal flaw here is that shadow AI, and specifically embedded AI features, often generate no logs that a SIEM is programmed to understand. Or if they do generate logs, the logs simply show an authorized user interacting normally with an approved tool.
So it looks totally normal on paper.
The SIEM might see user opened document A, but it doesn't log user sent document A's entire contents to an external LLM via API. A SIEM only sees what it has been explicitly programmed to look for, and nobody has programmed it to look for embedded AI API calls.
That makes sense, but what about DLP? Data loss prevention. I mean, the entire purpose of a DLP system is to literally prevent sensitive data from being lost or emailed outside the company. Why isn't DLP catching this?
DLP is actually the most spectacular point of failure in this entire scenario. For the last decade, DLP was the absolute lifeblood of information security. But we have to look at how DLP actually functions. Traditional DLP relies heavily on static rules and something called regular expressions.
Regular expressions. Break that down for me.
A regular expression is a sequence of characters that specifies a search pattern. It tells the computer to look for highly predictable shapes of data. For example, a credit card number almost always looks like 16 digits, perhaps grouped in 4s. A social security number in the US is always 3 digits, a dash, 2 digits, a dash, and 4 digits.
Okay, so DLP is brilliant at scanning an outgoing email, recognizing the shape of a social security number, and blocking the email from sending.
Exactly. It's looking for a very specific fingerprint. But generative AI operates on an entirely different medium, unstructured data.
Unstructured data, like what?
Employees are not pasting neatly formatted spreadsheets of credit card numbers into AI prompts. They are pasting massive, sprawling meeting transcripts. They are pasting chaotic, strategic brainstorming notes. They are pasting complex, multi-layered proprietary code logic.
But there was no predictable shape or regular expression for a Q4 marketing strategy or a CEO's candid thoughts on an upcoming merger.
Precisely. DLP struggles immensely to understand the semantic context of unstructured data. It literally cannot differentiate between a normal, harmless business email and a conversational prompt that subtly exposes your company's most sensitive intellectual property.
Because the data has no recognizable fingerprint, so it glides right past the security sensors.
Exactly.
So going back to our physical analogy, the data never trips the alarm at the front door because the user already had legitimate, authenticated access to the vault. They walked in, legally picked up the gold, walked to the back of the vault, and dropped it down a trap door that the security team didn't even know was there because the trap door was installed by the vault manufacturer during a routine maintenance update.
That is precisely what is happening, and the scale of this vulnerability is staggering. According to the research, 68% of institutions report that they have moved fewer than 30% of their AI experiments into full, governed production environments.
Meaning what exactly in this context?
It means that the vast majority of AI currently being utilized inside these enterprise companies is still operating in an experimental, beta, or pilot phase. It hasn't been fully vetted by security. It hasn't been stress tested.
Oh, wow.
There is a massive, sprawling web of unvetted experimental code and API connections actively touching live, highly sensitive corporate data right now. It is a genuine Wild West scenario, but it's operating entirely under the deceptive guise of a safe, approved software stack.
So we have established a pretty grim picture. Our expensive firewalls are acting like toll booths waving through getaway cars. Our CM is reading logs that don't tell the truth, and our DLP is desperately looking for 16-digit numbers while employees paste 40-page unstructured documents into the void.
Yeah, that sums it up.
If the technology is failing us this completely, how on earth do we actually spot a worker using unauthorized AI? We have to be able to find the leak before we can fix it.
You do have to find it, but it requires a fundamental shift in how you monitor your environment. You have to stop looking for bad signatures like the regular expressions we just talked about and start looking for anomalous behavior.
An anomalous being.
Yes. It requires a dual approach. Human observation combined with next-generation technical detection.
Let's start with the human element, because that's the most accessible. What does a manager actually look for? Are they just hovering over people's shoulders looking for ChatGPT tabs?
No. You look at the output. Specifically, you look for unexplained massive spikes in productivity.
Wait, really? Being too good at your job is a red flag. That feels incredibly counterintuitive for a manager.
In this specific context, yes. It is the most reliable early warning sign. If you have a junior software developer who historically struggles with complex algorithms, and suddenly they start committing massive blocks of code at impossible speeds, and the code is completely error-free and elegantly structured.
That's a massive anomaly.
Right. Or if you have a marketing associate who usually takes a week to build a campaign, and they suddenly produce 5 highly polished, perfectly formatted, 50-slide campaign proposals in a single afternoon.
You're looking for a sudden, inexplicable jump in capability.
Exactly. Or you start seeing emails, internal memos, and reports that completely lack the worker's usual voice. They lose their usual conversational cadence, their little grammatical quirks, and instead, the formatting is incredibly rigid, bulleted, and tonally perfect.
It's almost like the uncanny valley of employee output. It looks human, but it's just a little too flawless to be real.
That's a perfect way to describe it. When human output suddenly scales like machine output, a manager shouldn't just celebrate the productivity. They should be asking very direct questions about how that productivity was achieved.
And more importantly, what data was fed into what machine to achieve it.
Exactly.
Okay, but we can't just rely on managers feeling suspicious or noticing a change in an employee's writing style. What about technical observation? How do we modernize the IT stack to actually catch this behavior?
You need to implement what the security industry calls layered detection. Because the firewall is blind to the data payload, you need tools that sit closer to the application layer. This is where you deploy a CASB, a cloud access security broker.
Let's break that down. We talked about the firewall being the toll booth. What is the CASB in that analogy?
If the firewall is the toll booth checking if cars are allowed on the highway, the CASB is a fleet of patrol cars driving alongside the traffic.
Okay, I like that.
A CASB sits in line between the user and the cloud. It doesn't just look at where the traffic is going, it can actually inspect the payload. It can discover shadow SaaS applications that the firewall misses.
And crucially, it can enforce granular policies on what specific types of data can be uploaded to specific cloud apps.
Yes. It can say, yes, you can go to this marketing tool, but you are not allowed to upload files containing these specific keywords.
That makes sense. What else goes into layer detection?
You pair the CASB with a SWG, a secure web gateway which deeply analyzes web traffic to dynamically block unapproved cloud apps based on real-time threat intelligence. But the really critical piece for catching embedded AI is UEBA, user and entity behavior analytics.
Behavior analytics. So it's looking at the digital equivalent of that uncanny valley productivity.
Precisely. Yumiba doesn't look for malware signatures. It establishes a baseline of normal behavior for every single employee.
How does that work in practice?
If a sales rep typically uploads 5 megabytes of data a day to your approved CRM, the system learns that baseline. If suddenly, on a Tuesday, that same rep attempts to upload 500 megabytes of data to a completely unknown cloud domain, or even a sudden massive spike of data to a known vendor, UEBA immediately flags that anomalous spike.
It alerts security that the behavior has drastically deviated from the norm.
Yes.
And we desperately need these tools because the cost of missing these behavioral shifts is astronomical, right?
It is company ending in some cases. IBM publishes an annual cost of a data breach report, and their latest numbers show that the average shadow IT breach now costs the company $4.63 million.
$4.63 million.
And even more terrifying than the financial cost is the timeline. The report shows it takes an average of 247 days to detect and contain these breaches.
247 days. That is more than 2/3 of a year. That means a leaky AI model or a malicious attacker who accessed that model has unfettered access to your corporate data for 8 months before your security team even realizes something is wrong.
And that's exactly why layered detection, catching the anomaly the moment it happens, is non-negotiable.
So this brings up a really complex philosophical question about the workforce. What does this all mean for the employee?
It's a tough spot.
Because I have to play devil's advocate here. It feels like corporate leadership is setting a trap. We hire incredibly smart people, we give them massive, sometimes unreasonable workloads, and we demand innovation. When they actually find a highly efficient way to do that work using a new AI tool, we deploy behavioral analytics to monitor them, flag them as a security anomaly, and punish them.
I see where you're going.
If IBM's research also notes that 20% of shadow tools eventually become officially approved, mainstream enterprise solutions, aren't the rule breakers actually just the company's unpaid R&D department? Aren't they doing the ground-level innovation that the IT procurement process is simply too slow and bureaucratic to do?
That is a brilliant observation, and it hits on the absolute most crucial cultural point of this entire crisis. If management listens to this deep dive and their immediate reaction is to start firing people who use unauthorized AI, they will destroy their company.
Really? Destroy it?
Absolutely. The absolute worst response to discovering shadow AI is blame.
Why is blame the worst response? Shouldn't there be consequences for breaking security protocols?
Because, as we established earlier, these employees are not malicious actors. They are trying to survive their workloads and deliver value to the company. The software ecosystem fundamentally changed under our feet, incredibly fast.
So what should management do?
The responsible, mature move for executive management is to name that reality clearly and without judgment. They need to stand up in front of the company and say, we know our tools quietly added AI. We understand exactly why you are using it, because it works and because you are trying to be efficient.
But now we understand the data risks, and we need to be deliberate and transparent about how we move forward together.
Exactly, because if you punish them.
Think about the psychology. If an employee believes that reporting their incredibly helpful AI tool will get them reprimanded, stripped of their efficiency, or fired, they won't stop using the tool.
They will just hide it deeper. They will find more obscure workarounds. They will move from the corporate laptop to the personal iPad.
If instead they understand that the issue isn't their desire to innovate, but rather the need to secure the company's shared infrastructure, they will actively help IT surface the tools they are using. You have to partner with the innovators, not police them.
Spot on.
Okay, so we know the problem. We know the astronomical cost, we understand the failure of legacy security, and we know exactly why it's happening at the human level. We've established that we shouldn't just fire everyone who uses ChatGPT.
Right.
So how does management actually fix this? How do we secure the data without sending the company back to the technological Stone Age and banning everything that makes us productive?
The sources from Resolve.ai and the security frameworks outline a very specific, highly actionable, multi-step process. This isn't theoretical. This is what companies need to do tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. Okay, let's hear it.
Let's start with the immediate triage, what they call the 48-hour audit.
48 hours. That's
Yeah.
aggressive. What exactly am I doing in that window? You are not trying to audit your entire company. If you try to map every piece of software in a large enterprise, it will take you 6 months, and the data will be obsolete by the time you finish. Instead, you ruthlessly prioritize.
Okay.
You pick the top 5 SaaS platforms in your organization that hold your most sensitive, mission-critical data. Give me an example. What are the top 5?
Typically, this is your CRM, where all your customer data lives, your HR information system, which holds employee PII and payroll, your customer support ticketing platform, your primary document management suite, like Google Workspace or Microsoft 365.
And your ERP, your enterprise resource planning system, which holds your financial ledgers.
Exactly. You identify the vendor rep for those 5 platforms, and you get them on a video call.
Okay, I have the vendor on the line. What am I asking them?
You ask them 4 very specific, uncompromising questions. Question 1. What are all the generative AI features currently active in our instance of this platform?
Simple enough.
Question 2. What are the exact data flows for those features? Does the data stay on your servers or does it leave? Question 3. What is your data retention policy for the information fed into those specific AI features? Are you using our data to train your future models?
And question 4.
This is the most critical one. Who are your sub-processors? Meaning, are you secretly packaging my data and sending it to OpenAI, Anthropic, or an overseas server farm to power this shiny new feature?
And what's going to happen when I ask those questions? Because I imagine a lot of sales reps are going to stumble over that 4th question.
They will stumble, they will try to send you generic privacy policies, and you have to press them. And according to the governance experts, when you do this 48-hour audit, you will almost certainly find at least one embedded feature across those top 5 platforms that violates your security posture and needs to be disabled immediately.
Pending a full legal review, I imagine.
Exactly. You are guaranteed to find a leaky pipe you didn't know existed.
Okay, so the 48-hour audit plugs the immediate massive holes.
Yeah.
But software updates constantly. How do we manage this going forward without having to call the vendors every single week?
You have to fundamentally shift your governance mindset. Right now, most companies track applications. They have an approved app list. Salesforce is approved, Dropbox is not.
Right.
That binary thinking is dead. You need to shift from an app register to an AI capability register. You aren't just tracking the app, you are tracking the specific AI capabilities inside the app.
How do you organize a capability register? That sounds incredibly complex.
You classify the individual features by risk tier. Let's break it down. Low risk would be generic AI drafting capabilities used against low sensitivity public-facing material.
Think of using an AI to brainstorm blog post titles.
Yeah.
That capability is generally allowed.
Exactly. Medium risk might be internal summarization of non-critical documents or frontline IT triage support. That requires a baseline security review and explicit user guidelines.
And then a high risk.
High-risk capabilities are anything touching customer records, HR data, proprietary code, or financial workflows. These features are turned off by default at the administrative level, and they cannot be activated until a full, rigorous data protection impact assessment is completed by the security team.
You govern the action, not the application.
Exactly.
But none of this technical governance works if the employees on the ground don't understand it. We talked about the psychology earlier and how they don't see the risk. What does a successful, modern employee training program for secure AI actually look like?
It has to be drastically different from legacy compliance training.
Because nobody wants to watch another 45-minute animated compliance video from 2018.
Definitely not. The outline provided in the research points to 4 key pillars for effective employee AI training. First pillar, role-based policies.
Meaning you don't train everyone the same way.
Right. The tech and engineering teams get entirely different permissions and entirely different training than the customer-facing sales roles. You don't train a hospital triage nurse the same way you train a Wall Street financial analyst because their daily data exposure presents totally different risk profiles.
The immutable PHI versus the financial PCI, the training has to be highly specific to the tools and data that employee handles every day.
That makes perfect sense. Relevance drives engagement. What's the second pillar? Education on model leakage. This is huge, and it's where companies usually fail. You have to actually teach employees the mechanics of how AI trains on their data.
You mean explaining the unwanted memorization we talked about earlier?
Yes, you sit them down and you show them the real-world example of the electronics company losing its proprietary source code. You explain that LLMs don't have a delete button for specific memories.
When employees actually understand that the AI physically changes its neural weights based on their prompt, and that it might spit their exact prompt out to a competitor tomorrow, their behavior changes.
When you demystify the magic and show them the plumbing, they self-regulate significantly better.
They stop seeing it as an all-knowing oracle and start seeing it as a public bulletin board. Okay, what is Pillar 3?
This one requires executive courage. Pillar 3 is the 30-day amnesty program. You announce a 30-day window to the entire company.
And during this window,
Any employee can come forward, report the unapproved shadow AI tool they have secretly been using to do their job, and face absolutely zero penalty. No reprimands on their HR file, no firing, no angry lectures from IT.
you essentially invite the shadow IT out into the light.
Exactly. Because you cannot secure what you cannot see, you have to absorb that unvetted R&D back into the corporate structure, and that leads directly to the final pillar, Pillar 4, the 24-hour fast track.
So if they bring a tool into the light during the amnesty, you have to do something about it quickly.
Right. If an employee surfaces a low-risk, highly effective AI tool during that amnesty period, say, a fantastic new tool for generating marketing graphics, IT must have a streamlined, agile process to review the vendor's security posture and approve it within 24 hours.
If IT takes their standard 3 months to review a tool that saves an employee 2 hours a day, the employee will lose faith in the process and just hide the tool again. You have to match the velocity of the business.
Exact.
Let's zoom out here for a second and look at the macro picture. Let's say a company CEO is listening to this deep dive and they think, you know what? This capability register, the amnesty program, the layer detection,
Yeah.
that sounds like a massive amount of work and overhead. We are just going to risk it. We will buy cyber insurance and deal with the leaks if they happen.
Yeah, that's a dangerous mindset.
What is coming for that company?
What is coming is the regulatory hammer, and it will swing incredibly hard. If companies do not implement these frameworks proactively out of good business sense, the government is actively preparing to force them to.
And the financial penalties are going to be agonizing. Let's look at that regulatory landscape. Start with the United States. What is the legal reality right now?
The U.S. approach is currently highly fragmented, which makes compliance a nightmare. It is happening primarily at the state level, but the pace of legislation is staggering. In 2025 alone, there were over 1,000 AI-related bills introduced across state legislatures.
Wow.
By the end of 2025, 38 different states had enacted over 100 new legally binding AI-related measures.
And given what we discussed earlier, I'm guessing healthcare was the big target for those state lawmakers.
Absolutely. Healthcare was the major pressure point. Out of those bills, 34 states introduced 250 bills specifically focused on healthcare AI.
What are they regulating exactly?
They're heavily regulating automated decision-making for insurance claims, AI-assisted diagnostics, and the protection of patient data from being used in LLM training without explicit consent.
So in the U.S., it's a massive patchwork. If you are a mid-sized company doing business across 20 state lines, you are dealing with 20 different AI compliance frameworks. That alone is a reason to lock down your data flows.
Completely.
What about Europe? They usually take a much harder line on privacy.
Europe has taken a very different, very aggressive path. They implemented the EU AI Act. It is strict, it is unified across the continent, and the fines are explicitly designed to terrify corporate boards into compliance.
How terrifying are we talking? Give me the numbers.
If your company is found in violation of the EU AI Act, for instance, deploying a high-risk AI system without proper governance, or leaking data through an unvetted vendor, the fines start at 7.5 million euros or 1.5% of your total global turnover, whichever is higher.
That's at 7.5 million.
And for severe breaches, they scale up to 35 million euros or 7% of your worldwide revenue.
7% of global revenue? That's not a slap on the wrist. That's not a cost of doing business you can just write off. For many companies, a 7% top-line penalty is an existential threat. It would wipe out their entire profit margin for the year.
It is designed to be an existential threat. The regulators want to make it unequivocally clear that negligent AI deployment will not be tolerated, and the enforcement on these general-purpose AI models is ramping up heavily as we move through 2026.
Okay, so the regulators are coming with massive fines. But the technology isn't standing still waiting for the lawyers to catch up, is it? We spent this entire deep dive talking about human employees typing text prompts into chatbots or clicking embedded buttons.
Yeah.
But the sources highlight a massive fundamental shift happening in the architecture right now.
Yes, and this is perhaps the most critical trend for the future of enterprise security. We are actively shifting away from chatbots and moving toward agentic AI, or as they are commonly called, AI agents.
Yeah, explain the mechanical difference. What separates a chatbot from an AI agent?
A chatbot is entirely reactive. It requires a human prompt to function. You type a specific question, it generates a specific answer, and then it stops and waits for your next command. It's conversational.
And agentic AI?
Agentic AI, on the other hand, is autonomous. You don't give it a prompt, you give it a goal.
Give me an example of a goal.
You tell the agentic AI, analyze our Q3 supply chain logistics, identify the 3 biggest bottlenecks, email the suppliers to negotiate better rates, and update the ERP system with the new projections.
That's a lot of steps.
And the AI agent autonomously plans those steps, executes the actions, interacts with other software platforms via API, reads the replies from the suppliers, adjusts the strategy, and completes the entire complex task without a human ever holding its hand or approving each step.
And how fast is this agentic AI penetrating the corporate world?
According to the research from Gartner, by the end of 2026, 40% of all enterprise applications will include task-specific AI agents that operate autonomously in the background.
Wait, I need to stop and process this. If human beings are currently accidentally leaking massive amounts of sensitive data, simply because they don't understand where the data goes when they click a summarize button, what on earth happens when autonomous AI agents start talking to other AI agents?
That's huge.
Who governs the machines when the machines decide to use shadow AI to finish a task faster?
This raises an incredibly important, terrifying question, and it is the absolute bleeding edge of cybersecurity right now. Think about the logic of the machine.
Okay.
If an autonomous AI agent is programmed with the goal of optimizing a supply chain as efficiently as possible, and it realizes that routing your proprietary data through an unvetted third-party subprocessor is 10% faster than using the approved internal tool, will it do it?
Yes, because its entire algorithmic objective is efficiency. It doesn't understand the concept of a 35 million euro regulatory fine unless someone programmed that constraint into it.
Exactly. The machine will inevitably bypass security to achieve its goal, which is exactly why the experts in our sources universally conclude that trustworthy AI is going to become the ultimate competitive edge for businesses by the end of 2026.
Define trustworthy AI in this specific autonomous context.
It means fundamentally moving away from black box solutions where data goes in and magic comes out. Trustworthy AI requires strict programmatic guardrails. It requires combining machine autonomy with mandatory human oversight at critical junctures.
It requires absolute explainability.
Yes, meaning the AI agent must be able to log and show its work, explaining the specific logic of why it made a routing decision. And it requires visible model logic with confidence scores and end-to-end source traceability.
If an AI agent cannot definitively prove that its automated data routing complies with your corporate security policy, it simply cannot be deployed, period.
Exactly right.
So we have gone on quite an intense journey today. Let's summarize the path we've walked. We started with the simple, innocent desire of a stressed employee just wanting to write cold emails a little bit faster or summarize a boring 50-page document.
A very relatable desire.
And we've traced how that unchecked desire, combined with the deceptive Dieter Rams design of modern SaaS, leads directly to the systemic risk of embedded AI silently leaking proprietary source code or permanently exposing protected patient health data to the latent space of a third-party LLM.
We've deeply examined how traditional security infrastructure, the firewalls acting as coal booths, the SIMs parsing incomplete logs, and the DLP tools looking for structured regular expressions, are all fundamentally unequipped to handle unstructured data moving through approved SaaS trapdoors.
And we've laid out the actionable fix, the ruthless 48-hour audit of your top 5 SaaS platforms to interrogate vendors about their subprocessors, the vital shift from a binary app register to a nuanced AI capability register.
And most importantly, managing the human element, treating employees as partners rather than adversaries.
Using role-based training, educating them on the irreversible mechanics of model leakage, and deploying a 30-day amnesty program that stops punishing efficiency and starts actually governing it.
Because as we just discussed, the regulators are already here with crippling fines, and the rapid rise of autonomous agentic AI is going to make this data flow problem exponentially more complex before the year is out.
I want to speak directly to you, the listener, for a moment as we wrap up. Whether you are the CEO of a Fortune 500 company navigating international regulations, a junior software developer debugging code, a nurse practitioner processing intake forms, or a financial planner building a Q4 forecast, you are the front line of defense.
You really are.
The technology is moving vastly faster than the corporate policy.
Yep.
So the next time you are sitting in your trusted official company workspace and you see a sparkling new button that says, summarize this, or draft a reply, I want you to pause just for 1 second, and I want you to ask yourself, where is this data actually going?
Because that tiny moment of friction, that single deliberate question, is quite literally the only real governance we have left until the enterprise security systems catch up to the reality of the technology.
That's all we have.
I'll leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on everything we've explored today. Culturally, we spend an enormous amount of time worrying that AI will become sentient. We obsess over Terminator scenarios and sci-fi robot takeovers. We worry it will take our jobs and replace human creativity.
Yeah, that's who gets the headlines.
But the much more immediate, insidious, invisible threat isn't a sci-fi takeover. The real threat is that we are quietly, enthusiastically, and voluntarily uploading the intimate blueprints of our entire lives, our health histories, our financial futures, our corporate trade secrets to servers we do not control, operated by companies we do not know, just to save 5 minutes of typing on a Tuesday afternoon.
Wow.
Will minor daily convenience be the thing that ultimately undoes our right to privacy?
That is a staggering, profoundly unsettling thought. And it brings us right back to the very beginning of our conversation. That medical x-ray machine we talked about, the one that gives us that clean, binary certainty of a broken bone. We have to wake up and realize that when it comes to the software ecosystem we live in today, we aren't looking at an x-ray.
No, we really aren't.
The certainty is gone. We are standing in very deep, very muddy water, and we need to be incredibly careful about where we step next. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Stay curious, stay secure, and keep diving deep.